We're delighted to get something out of the game for sure, based on the fact that, from my angle, we were dominant in a lot of areas of the game. Possession, efforts at goal, creation in general was decent enough to have won the game. Disappointed in the fact that we go behind and we have to pull ourselves out of the mire yet again to stay unbeaten at home. I think we all felt and knew that at the end of a difficult week, 3 games in 7 or 8 days, that this one was always going to be tough. The Montreal group have proven that they really are a more competitive group under Wilfried, and they still offer that exciting counter-attacking pace that we had to be respectful of. But nevertheless, pleased that we earned the point. Mixed emotions for the fact that we didn't earn all 3.
Thank you, Coach. We will now open the floor for questions. We will again begin with questions here in the room, and then we'll kick it off with those on the Zoom call. Tim, go ahead.
You got Abu into the game, I think for the first time in a little while. Obviously gets the tying goal there. What did you see from his performance, and how excited were you for him?
It's been really difficult with the fact that Yonder's away. Daniel Anabu and Dominic have had injuries. They've been out. Abu and Daniel themselves have been out for a long time, long periods. The medical team have worked tremendously hard with them. We've even held them back a little bit to make sure that there weren't any other problems. But what that has meant is we've had a few options to change and dynamics to change in the game. The only concern was, how much time did they have in them? How much stress could we put them under? He looked bright, he looked purposeful. There was a change of pace, there was a dynamic edge to the front line when him and Daniel came into it. And I know we changed shape a little bit towards the end, but certainly Abu was a real impact in the game, and the goal capped off what was a bright and an exciting period of the game for him.
Thank you, Coach. Great, go for it.
Yeah, sticking to Abu, he's arguably probably had to battle the most injuries, even going back to last year. Hamstring problems, quad problems, even groin problems. But he's also relatively young as well. He's not maybe as veteran as Don Baji or CJ Sapong. Have you had to have those conversations with Abu to keep him steady, to keep him going even in training?
Yeah, of course. He's, as you say, he's picked up what we could class as some soft tissue injuries along the way. He's finding a lot out about his own body, and he appreciates and understands that because he is, that top end, fast twitch type of player, that he has to do a little bit more in the gym. He has to do a little bit more prehab and injury prevention. He's got his own individual work that, we hope long term puts him in a much better place to be available, because when he's on the field and when he's coming into games as we saw today, in a game where the energy was very, very low towards the end for Montreal, those individuals can take advantage of it, and he did.
Gary, you mentioned earlier changed shape a little bit throughout the course of the match. But was that something you were thinking about doing earlier when it looked like Taylor Washington was preparing to come on? And was that change of sub just totally dependent on the goal going in there?
Yeah, no, at that point in time, I was probably going to keep things as they were. I wanted to add some fresh legs and a bit of pace and energy to the group. At that point, I think we were at 65 minutes. It was a concern that either Daniel or Abu could get that done for us. What it meant was I had to take a gamble on Abu. We needed 2 forwards on the field. The fact that we ended up switching to a back 3 was, strangely enough, it was about set pieces that we were very, very aggressive at tonight, and in a slightly different maybe picture or other game, we might have turned the scales and scored from one of our own dead balls. And Walker's presence on the field always gives everyone a lift. He was aggressive, he was front foot. And, you know, when all said and done, I think that the subs that came into the game, Brian Anunga was you know, very energetic. He you know, gave a different look to the midfield for the last period of time. And he himself has been out for a long period. So I'm delighted with the guys that came in. They helped the group through a very difficult period. But as I said at the start, it won't stop me being disappointed that we haven't earned all three.
Gary, the fact that the team was actually doing a great effort to try to score the game, I mean the goal, and the keeper, I mean he did 3 or 4 really good saves. Well, did you notice some anxiety in the team from the bench when that was happening?
Yeah, of course. Look, we've been able to recover from some difficult situations already this year, which is great news. I think that's a sign of character. That's a sign of you know, internal belief within the group that there's always something in the game for us. So that's a great quality to have. But there's no two ways about it. When you go into the injury period of the game and you're a goal behind, the team in front know full well, as we saw, if they could break the game up. You know, 1 or 2 phantom injuries came out of the woodwork, and I'm sure some tired legs that people did have that were sore, but it's an opportunity to embellish that and to just, we've seen it a million times. You know, it's gamesmanship. They're trying to find their way through to a valuable victory. And of course, the guys are that much more anxious that, you know, we need to find a goal. It's amazing, in the end, where the decisive delivery came from with Jack Meyer. You know, with all of the attacking bodies on the field, you know, with all of the talent that you can see around, and Jack Meyer delivers the final ball, you know, to, as I say, to keep our unbeaten run at home going. But, you know, as I say, I've said multiple times, I don't need to keep saying it, I'm disappointed with him.
Before we go into the follow-ups, does anybody have any questions on or a reminder for those in the chat to please alert me through the chat that you have a question with that info for us.
Gary, what do you have to do in order to get better finishing in the first half? It seems like, is this a personnel thing? Is this a structural thing? Is this a one-on-one thing?
If you look around the group, I think we could lay some fatigue at the feet of some players. CJ Sapong trained once in the 3-week international break and has now given us some terrific minutes. He played 90 minutes midweek. You know, having worked his socks off for 75 minutes in New York, and he's done likewise tonight. He's given us another 75 minutes. That's a great output. And just if we're focusing in on one individual, there's going to be some tired legs. There's going to be some situations where maybe his footwork could be a little bit sharper, and he knows that too. But that can be offered up around the group. There were opportunities, that's his header, that, you know, I've seen him tuck away before. He'll be disappointed with that. The good thing is we're creating those moments. When you look at the fact that we've got guys tonight that could come in for a limited period because they're working through their almost recovering process. I can't put guys like Daniel and Abu in for 45 minutes or an hour. It's impossible. They just don't have that in their legs. You know, I'm running a risk that they'll break down again. So there are limitations to the options we have as well. So, you know, all told, the positives are we've created 21 efforts at goal again. The positives are that our expected goal scoring rate has been very, very much higher than Montreal's tonight. Against a side, by the way, who are a very, very good defensive side. They've come on in leaps and bounds in the way that they manage games and defend games. There's a lot of effort gone in to their game tonight, which has, in some cases, prevented us from being, you know, more clinical in front of goal. And the goalkeeper's played out of his skin. Young goalkeeper comes in because their first choice goalkeeper is injured, and he's had a terrific game. So there's all sorts of reasons why we haven't won the game. I'll always look at the fact that a set-piece goal against us, with the bodies we've got, it is, you know, is hard to swallow.
We have time for the three of you. If for any reason your question has been already answered, please give us the courtesy of getting back to the locker room with that team.
Yeah, Gary, you just mentioned it on the set piece, how they scored the goal through that route. Jack mentioned after the game on Wednesday that Walker is quite a bit more of an aerial threat than he is in that regard. Is that something where, you know, if you had Walker, that you think it might not have happened at that point?
It's an identical spot that we, you know, almost identical that we conceded midweek. We tried to negate that area, and Jack's doing a fantastic job, and I'm delighted with his performance, but he was in that front zone that may well have, with a little bit more experience, might have just taken a more aggressive step. It's tough because he's got movement in front of him. We changed bodies. I think, in fact, CJ was still on at that point. I think he was meant to be marking Struner. It takes, you know, a millimetre of a guy of Struner's size to be getting in front of his marker. Ball was very good again. It's a lovely area. Timing spot on. That's why you see goals being scored. At the other end of the field, I can remember numerous opportunities where we may well have taken advantage of that and didn't. And that in itself is, you know, a little bit frustrating.
Gary, you mentioned Brian Anuda earlier with his performance. Matt LaGrasse is another guy who's performed well in the midfield over the last few weeks. Talk a little bit about that position battle as we head into the summer. Anibal's going to miss some time with Panama. What does that mean with those guys, and how many minutes do you see those two eating up?
Honestly, it's fine lines between those two guys. They're both competing against arguably, you know, a most solid foundation in the group with Dax and Annabelle. I know Matt's got some minutes up in New York. Brian's coming back from injury. And from my standpoint, there's some management to be done here in, you know, getting these guys up to speed again when there's little other competition outside of first team games. And to your point, knowing that Annabelle will, you know, be disappearing in a week's time, I think both of those guys need to be ready and available for what comes next. You know, Dax has got through some tremendous work in the last week. You know, he's, I think, played 2 90s and 65 minutes today. You know, you can't ask for any more from players like that. But those two guys are going to certainly see some minutes in the coming weeks, and then they both need to be ready for that.
Right.
In a similar vein, Luke Hawkinson obviously getting his start. What did you see tonight? And of course, as Gold Cup approaches, that means something for Randall Leal.
I was really pleased with him. You know, Wednesday night, 2 goals, incredible impact in the game. Couldn't have asked for any more from the lad. Today's a different challenge. You start the game, you don't come into a game where legs are weary and there's a bit more space and maybe a little bit more time. It's a completely different picture when you start. There's different management at the moments that you know, are put in. And of course tonight, the shape of their group was completely different to Toronto's. And he's learning and growing as each minute goes by, but his general play, his positional play, he was carrying an injury into, when was it, Thursday? It was actually a real doubt for the game. And he pronounced himself fit after training on Friday. So I was a tad concerned that he may not make it, or certainly an hour's football. Really, really pleased with him. He's moving on in leaps and bounds, and he will certainly be another individual that needs to fill some shoes as Randall disappears. And I'm looking around for the competition in those wide areas.
Thank you, Coach.